It's been 5 days since our child was born. My husband appeared without any notice and shoved divorce papers in my face.
If you get too cocky just because you had a kid, I'll divorce you right away. You'd be in trouble if we divorced, right? There's no way you can raise a kid alone, huh?
Enraged, I snatched the divorce papers from him.
Huh? It's pointless to try and tear it up. You'll just be my slave anyway.
Ignoring my husband's sneering laugh, I signed the divorce papers and said, "Fine, let's get divorced."
Huh?
My name is Stella. I'm 32 years old. I met my older husband, Leonardo, at work, and we've been married for 4 years.
I'll work hard and earn money, so I want Stella to support me. When we have kids, I want Stella to stay at home.
Leonardo's parents both worked, so he felt lonely during his childhood. That's why he strongly hoped that I would become a stay-at-home mom so our child wouldn't feel the same way. I agreed with Leonardo's opinion and became a stay-at-home mom when we got married. Leonardo, who was over 30 when we got married, wanted to have children right away. I wanted time for just the two of us, but I also wanted children. I felt a little lonely, but I convinced myself to save our time as a couple for our old age. But even after 1 year, even after 2 years, no baby came to us. As I turned 30, I started to feel anxious. Leonardo became visibly irritated and started talking as if it was my fault.
Why can't you have a baby even though you're a stay-at-home mom? There are so many working women who get pregnant. You're in a privileged environment and still can't get pregnant. Who do you think you are?
It's not like I don't want to get pregnant, but he talks as if it's all my fault. Having a job or not has nothing to do with pregnancy. Leonardo talks as if it's all my fault. It seemed like he was venting his frustration by ordering me around.
You don't have any kids, and you're just lazing around at home, so you can at least do this. Don't be spoiled.
The household chores Leonardo demanded became more and more advanced. It felt like I was being treated like a maid. However, living far from my hometown, I didn't have any friends nearby. I barely went out, only to buy groceries. I wasn't working, so I hardly had any money to spend freely. I was living a suffocating life. It wasn't just Leonardo who cornered me. 2 years into our marriage, with no pregnancy announcement, his parents started to suspect something and contacted us. His parents asked, "Where's our grandchild?" My husband said, "It's your fault we don't have a baby." I had no one to talk to and had to endure the pressure alone. My life became darker and darker, but the endless days seemed to come to an end. Finally, I got pregnant. A clear positive line appears on the pregnancy test. Tears of joy well up in my eyes. At last, I finally become pregnant. I tried to contain my excitement and take a picture of the pregnancy test to send to Leonardo. Once he knows I'm pregnant, he should go back to being his old self. I send the photo with that hope, but there's no response from Leonardo. When he comes home late at night, he hands me his bag and jacket like always. Nothing seems different. Wait, did he not see the photo? Without saying a word, Leonardo sits on the sofa and starts watching TV. At dinner, he's still silent, so I decide to bring up the topic myself. "Leonardo, I sent you a photo. Did you see it? I'm pregnant. Finally, a baby is coming to us." Holding back the tears that threaten to spill, I smile at Leonardo, but his gaze remains fixed on the TV. Finally, without changing his expression, Leonardo says,
Seems like it.
Is that all? Why isn't he happy? Why doesn't he look pleased? I can't understand it at all. An indescribable feeling washes over me. Hey, this is our baby. Aren't you happy? You always said you wanted a child. You wished for it to happen soon, right? I seek agreement from Leonardo as if to dispel my anxiety. He should be happy, delighted, feeling the same as me. That's what I wanted to believe. But the words that came back from Leonardo easily betrayed my expectations.
Don't get all high and mighty just because you got pregnant, all right? Do you even realize how long you kept me waiting? Don't think I'll be kind just because you're pregnant. You're not working. I expect you to keep doing the housework, as you have been.
I never thought of slacking off on housework or expecting kindness. All I want is a single "I'm happy" from Leonardo. My tears of joy from just a moment ago have turned into tears of sadness. Without paying any attention to me, Leonardo heads to the bedroom without saying a word. Why couldn't he be happy for me? He said he wanted a child so badly. At the obstetrician's office, I found out I was pregnant with twins, but Leonardo doesn't show any sign of happiness. Maybe it doesn't feel real yet since my belly isn't getting big. I'm sure he'll gradually realize it as my belly grows. That's what I decided to believe. A few weeks pass, and morning sickness starts, along with constant drowsiness. Even in this state, Leonardo doesn't show concern for my health or help with housework. During a checkup, I'm faced with a shocking truth.
You're at risk for a miscarriage. Please try to rest as much as possible.
Hearing the word miscarriage makes everything go dark. But knowing there's still a chance for the babies, I take a deep breath. The doctor's instruction is bed rest at home. I need Leonardo's help. I contact him right away, but just like when I told him about the pregnancy, there's no response. I tell Leonardo about the checkup when he gets home, but his attitude doesn't change. After struggling for a few days, I decide to go back to my parents' house early. That night, Leonardo throws these words at me.
Don't laze around too much at your parents and gain weight, okay? And remember, you're taking care of the house when you get back. Be careful not to slack off too much.
On the day I go back home, even though we won't see each other for a while, Leonardo leaves the house in the morning. With my parents' help, I get through my time at home, and after several checkups, I'm told there's no more concern. That's the only saving grace. When I contact Leonardo to tell him about the checkup, he picks up the phone and tells me in an annoyed voice,
"Oh, that's good. Well, bye."
Just before he hangs up, I hear a woman's voice on the other end of the phone.
"Leonardo, who are you talking to?"
It didn't sound like a misunderstanding. The person on the other end was clearly calling Leonardo's name. I had a feeling that Leonardo didn't love me anymore. I didn't want to admit it, but after hearing that woman's voice, I couldn't deny it any longer. Now, Leonardo's cold attitude makes sense. As I rubbed my growing belly, I made a decision. I'll divorce him and raise these twins by myself. Having been cooped up at home for about 2 months, I decided to go for a walk. It was a warm, sunny day, and the fresh green leaves were dazzling. Just then, I was suddenly called from behind. It was my childhood friend, Jameson, who had called out to me. We hadn't seen each other in years, and he happily invited me for tea. After reminiscing about old times, we shared updates on our lives. Jameson had become a lawyer and had just opened a small office. Hearing his profession, I had an idea. Speaking of which, in cases of infidelity,
you can claim compensation, right?
I accidentally let that slip, and Jameson's expression turned serious.
What's wrong? If you have any concerns, I'll listen.
Before I knew it, I was revealing my inner thoughts, which I couldn't tell anyone. The struggle to get pregnant, my husband's indifference, and even him enjoying time with his mistress. As I talked, I realized I was tearing up.
It must have been tough.
At Jameson's words, the tension inside me snapped. Even though I'm not young anymore, I broke down crying without caring about others' eyes.
Calm down. It's okay. I'll help you.
Jameson desperately comforted me.
First, let's gather evidence. You can't fight without proof of infidelity.
Evidence?
Anything. Just gather physical evidence.
But can I do it?
Should I introduce you to a private detective agency I'm acquainted with? They're experienced in gathering evidence for divorce cases, so it'll be fine.
Thank you. That would be helpful. After that, I followed Jameson's advice and hired a private detective to gather evidence of Leonardo's infidelity. According to the detective agency, Leonardo had been inviting his mistress to our home and practically living with her while I was away visiting my parents. The mistress was a third-year newcomer at the same company Leonardo and I worked at. Everyone at the company knew that Leonardo was married, as I used to work there too. It seemed that the mistress was having a relationship with him, knowing he was married, and their affair had been going on for 2 years. It was around the time Leonardo became frustrated that we couldn't have a child. He blamed me for not being able to have a child, treated me like a maid, and was indifferent even after I became pregnant. I had many worries because it was my first time, but he was cheating with another woman outside. Learning the truth, I trembled with anger. So this was why he didn't rejoice when I became pregnant. While I was suffering and in pain, he was enjoying himself. Just divorcing him wouldn't be enough. I will definitely make him pay. Determined, I had several meetings with Jameson, the lawyer, and devised a plan. Jameson was very supportive and constantly concerned about my condition. And right on my due date, I gave birth to healthy twins. Leonardo suddenly appeared on the 5th day after the birth when the pain from my wound had subsided.
Hey, long time no see. You got to stay in the hospital for 9 days, huh? What a luxury. It's not like you gave birth by yourself. You were slow to get pregnant. Slacked off on housework when you went home. And then had a C-section? You're a failure as a woman.
To say such words to his wife, especially a wife who just gave birth? And he didn't even try to look at the children's faces. I didn't want to think that this man was the father of the twins. Barely containing my anger, Leonardo handed me a piece of paper. His signature was already on the divorce papers.
Don't get cocky just because you had kids, or it's instant divorce. You'd be in trouble if we got divorced, right? If you slack off on housework because you have kids, I won't forgive you.
My husband waved the divorce papers in front of me. My anger reached its peak, and I forcibly snatched the divorce papers from him.
Tearing it up is useless, you know. I can just get another one from the city office.
Ignoring Leonardo's sneering, I took a pen out of my bag.
Fine, let's get a divorce. I've been wanting to do it too. Huh?
I won't let him lay a finger on the children. I want him to disappear from this place as soon as possible. With those thoughts, I signed the divorce papers. Leonardo, sneering at me, reached out to grab the papers.
Do you even know what you're saying? What will you do with these kids if you divorce me? You can't raise them alone. Stop being stubborn. You should just be my slave for the rest of your life.
I've already told my parents that we're getting a divorce. From now on, I'll live with them. I don't need a man who cheats on me.
How long do you think that bravado will last? You can't make it without me. You'll regret it when it's too late.
That's when Jameson's voice was heard.
Excuse me, my name is Mr. Wood, and I'm Stella's lawyer. If you don't let go now, I'll call someone.
Surprised by the sudden appearance of the lawyer, Leonardo immediately let go of the papers.
Who are you? What do you mean, lawyer?
As if to hold Jameson back, my husband stepped forward and raised his voice. But Jameson was unfazed. He must have been through many similar situations before. Jameson calmly continued the conversation.
We already have evidence of your infidelity. If you don't agree to the divorce, we'll proceed with divorce mediation or a lawsuit. If you don't agree to pay compensation or negotiate, we'll also go to court. Wait a minute. I didn't agree to a divorce.
What is he talking about now, after bringing up the divorce himself? I can't stand this ridiculousness. While Jameson was persuading Leonardo, I handed the signed divorce papers to Jameson.
Mr. Wood, please take care of this.
Leonardo tried to take it back, but Jameson quickly put the papers in his bag.
I'll take care of it.
Jameson's face exuded an undeniable aura. Realizing that he couldn't defy the lawyer, Leonardo turned to me.
Hey, you're joking, right? We're not really getting a divorce, are we? You know you can't make a living without me, right? They're twins. Twins! It'll cost a lot of money. You'll be in trouble without me, right?
I gave Leonardo a cold stare. Feeling the intensity of my gaze, Leonardo was taken aback for a moment.
I can't believe you're the one who brought up divorce. And now you're saying this? We're still getting divorced, and I'm taking the alimony. You never planned on doing housework or childcare, right? I know that much. What do you mean, become a slave? Don't make a fool out of women.
I shouted angrily, leaving Leonardo stunned. I pressed on against him.
From now on, if you have anything to say, go through Mr. Wood. There's no point coming here. I'll ask everyone to keep you out. We have nothing more to discuss. So leave.
Hearing this, Leonardo's face turned red, and he raised his fist.
What? You?
But with Jameson's cough, he came to his senses and lowered his powerless fist.
That's how it is. So please leave.
Jameson's words seemed to make Leonardo give up, and he left the room with slumped shoulders. After that, I asked my parents to submit the divorce papers to the city office. The papers were accepted without issue, and I was finally, officially, divorced. Since that day, I had to change my cell phone because of nonstop calls and messages from Leonardo. Jameson, as a professional, did an excellent job handling the rest. I received proper alimony from Leonardo and his affair partner, so I wouldn't have trouble making ends meet for a while. A few months later, they both left their company. Their affair was exposed at work, and the woman resigned voluntarily. Leonardo was transferred to a rural area, but rumors followed him there, and he had no place to stay. After enduring reduced salary and people's stares, he continued to miss work without notice and was eventually fired for disciplinary reasons. On the other hand, I returned to my parents' house and struggled with childcare every day. It's tough with everything being new, but I'm managing thanks to my parents and Jameson. Actually, Jameson had apparently harbored feelings for me since long ago. He confessed, saying,
I don't mind if you have a child or a divorce history. Please, be with me.
He told me to answer when I was ready, but my feelings were already set. After that, I married Jameson. Now he treats the twins as his own children. Neither my parents nor I can thank Jameson enough for his wholehearted support of our family. I can't express my gratitude enough. From now on, I want to build a happy home with Jameson, starting anew.
My daughter and grandson are dead. Forget it. I will never forgive you. My mother was a very cold person. When I was young, I didn't like my mother. My husband was terribly upset when he heard my mother's words on the phone. Maybe you're not lying. I don't mind, because if you are, you'll be in trouble, right? In a sinister voice, the devil whispered to her son. I could easily imagine her grinning just from hearing her voice. Good. Shall we go then? I think you're the one who's really in trouble. My mother hung up the phone after saying that. My name is Lily, and I am a 33-year-old office worker. I met my husband Kago through my grandmother, who attends a tea ceremony class. I don't like this grandmother. He is the grandson of someone I met at the tea ceremony class, but he's also a kind and good person. Lily, please meet me just once so you can meet this man. I was taken quite forcibly to meet him. I never thought that I would go on an arranged marriage meeting, but at that time I was close to 30 years old, and I knew that one day I would get married. In the end, I gave in to my grandmother's push, but when I actually met this man, I was happy to learn that both he and his parents had good personalities. After dating for about a year, I married Keiko, whom I'm still married to. My husband's family runs a company, and as his parents' only son, my husband will be their next president. My family is extremely ordinary, so when my friends and colleagues found out about my marriage, they envied me, calling me spoiled. See, I was right that you two would get along. My grandmother was proud of our union. Kego's family included his father, my father-in-law, his mother, my mother-in-law, along with his grandmother, my grandmother-in-law. Kego's grandmother did not live with them. My husband's brother got ill and passed away several years ago, and now the company is run by my husband's father. My husband lived at home until he married me. Perhaps because of that, he didn't do any of the household chores properly. For example, the clothes he took off, he'd just leave there. And even after he finished eating, he didn't put away the dish he used. If I warned him, he would do it, but only reluctantly. It's been several months since I got married, and no matter how many times I say it, it doesn't seem to get better. Hey, why don't you keep your socks on? Oh, you've been making a lot of noise caring for our house. Mother did it silently, he said jokingly. Huh? What did you just say, mother? Did you say mother? I was flabbergasted by this. I'm not your mother. I packed my things and went home. My family looked surprised at my sudden return, but I lied and said that I was lonely because my husband was on his business trip. When my grandmother asked me about my married life, I said, well, it's okay. I had no choice but to answer. Do not cause any trouble, my grandmother and father reminded me. Seeing my wry smile on my face, only my mother, Lily, are you really doing well over there? I heard her. It's normal, and it's not something your mother should worry about. Yes, it would be nice if that were the case. It's been this way with my mom since I was little. Conversation does not last, and just talking makes me very nervous. My mother has always been a scary person to me. My father was always busy with work and wasn't home much, and my grandfather passed away when I was in elementary school. From my point of view, as a child, my parents' house revolved around my grandmother. When I was young and asked my mother about something, the words that came back to me were, "Ask Grandma." As a child, I came to think that my mother was not interested in me, and after that I stopped consulting my parents about things. However, my grandmother was somewhat intrusive. "If Lily does what Grandma says, she will definitely be happy," she said, as if it were a habit. As soon as I graduated from university, I ran away from home. To be honest, I didn't really understand what a family was like. However, I knew that everyone in my husband's family seemed to be on good terms and always ate together. No matter how hungry I am, I have to wait until everyone is ready to begin eating, I've heard my husband say. It didn't seem to change even after he got married and left his parents' home. About 3 days later after, I returned home. Lily? My demon-looking grandmother called me while I was resting in my room. Surprisingly, my husband Kago and mother-in-law were there too. I came to pick you up. It's my fault. Let's go home together. Seated there was a husband who seemed self-reflective. Lily, I heard about it from Kago. It seems I spoiled him too much. Kago seems to be self-reflecting. Could you please come back? I was completely deceived by their apologetic appearance. I heard the reason for the quarrel, but Lily, you are also to blame. As my grandmother said that with a sigh, she glanced sideways at my mother, when my mother whispered that she was sorry. Lily, Kago and your mother-in-law came back to pick me up like this, so try your best, she said. I thought that only my mother would be protected, but it seems that it is useless to expect. What about the past? It's Rawa now, a new imperial era in Japan elevating order and harmony. We should be getting along. Should we break up like this? But I understand, I replied with one word and left my home. I was silent in the car on the way home when my mother-in-law said to me, Lily, if the housework is so hard, then why don't we eat together? I will cook for you and Kago. Of course, there was no reason to be happy about my mother-in-law's proposal. No, not really. I want Kago to help me with the house more. If I do that more, then, as if interrupting my words, why? Why does Kago do housework? Housework is the wife's job, isn't it? My mother-in-law looked at me with a questioning face. But I'm working too. You know, Lily, we're not a normal family. Kago will take over the company one day, and it's your job. You want me to quit right now, you know? It's not a big deal. It's not my job. I've been working at my current company since I graduated from university. I like challenging work, but I also like kind colleagues. Even when I'm silent, my mother-in-law doesn't stop talking. I'm pregnant, I told my mother-in-law, even though I was told to keep it a secret. In fact, the week before this incident, the pregnancy test came out positive. My husband was happy with this. I knew that when I was pregnant, I wouldn't be able to move like I used to. Since my husband was going to be a father, I wanted him to at least be a little bit more cooperative with housework. That's all there is to it. I hadn't been examined at a maternity hospital yet, and I was irritated. However, things took an unexpected turn. My mother-in-law was complaining to me until recently. Huh? Pregnant, Lily? Are you pregnant? She became gentle, as if the palm had been turned back. Huh? Suddenly what? Does this person have a split personality or something? After that, when I parted from my mother-in-law and returned to my home, the room was surprisingly clean. Huh? Did you clean it up? I wish you had kept the pregnancy a secret, I said to my husband. My mother has been bothering me for a long time. I didn't tell you, but she was annoyed that I was going to have a baby soon. I'm sorry. He sincerely thanked me. Looking at my husband like that, I thought that I would try a little harder. But it's not because my mother said it. But eating at my parents' house isn't a bad thing, is it? At least on weekends, let's be spoiled. I couldn't find any reason to refuse when he said that in a gentle tone, probably because he cared about me and my body. I should have refused at this point, but the hellish pregnancy life starts here. When I went to the maternity hospital the next week, yes, you are pregnant. I was happy with what the doctor said. I vowed to give a lot of love to my unborn child. Eating at my mother-in-law's house wasn't as bad as I had imagined. My father-in-law and grandmother-in-law were also very happy about my pregnancy, more than anything. Come on, Lily, eat. You're pregnant with our precious heir. My mother-in-law felt a little old, but it was much better than her feeling sarcastic. I wondered what would happen, but thought to myself, I can do this. The thought soon fell apart. It happened at a dinner with my in-laws the following week. On this day, I was at my limit. I made a request to my mother-in-law despite feeling ashamed. I'm sorry, mother-in-law." My mother-in-law's face, which until then had been smiling, suddenly turned grim. "Why?" "Well, I started getting morning sickness a few days ago. I feel like I'm not eating well, and I feel sick if I don't put something in my mouth." My mother-in-law has, of course, experienced childbirth herself. I thought she would understand, but I got an unexpected reply from my mother-in-law. "Huh? Morning sickness? Didn't you hear from Kago? We have a rule that we eat only after all of us are together. Until then, please be patient." A moment later, in a voice too soft for me to hear, "Totally nasty," she said jokingly. This made me sad, and tears welled up in my eyes. After all, my father-in-law came home late that day, and it was after 8 p.m. when I was able to eat dinner. Of course, I couldn't wait until then, so while my mother-in-law was away, I ate little by little from my plate to hide. I felt sad seeing myself like this. By the time I finally got home that night, it was past 10 p.m., as if to add to my tiredness. "Lily, at my parents' house today, no matter how hungry I was embarrassed to be so greedy," he said. "Huh? Didn't I tell you? I think I'm starting to get more morning sickness. I feel sick if I don't eat something." "I will explain. But in the end..." Well, I'm a man, so I don't understand even if you say that. Be careful next time," he said. I was overwhelmed with anger at this, and I was dumbfounded and unable to say anything. After that, I stopped going to my in-laws' house. I lied that I was not feeling well. In fact, morning sickness was painful and heavy, and I wished every day that it would end soon. At the same time, I felt love for my child, who was growing up safely. My father-in-law and grandmother-in-law kindly told me not to push myself too hard. But those two were different. "Hello, Lily. Are you planning on not coming over this weekend too? Kago is the only one who always comes over here. Don't you think that's rude?" The constant contact from my mother-in-law gave me a headache. If I don't pick up, the phone kept ringing until I picked it up. "Excuse me, mother-in-law, apparently I have severe morning sickness." "Huh? Again? I didn't have morning sickness. Does that mean you're feeling good?" she said jokingly. Yes, even though I looked sick on the street, they didn't sympathize with me. "Are you serious? That's a funny thing to say. Don't you understand that just because your mother-in-law doesn't have a thrush doesn't mean that everyone else does? I'm sorry that the signal seems to be bad." After that phone call, I packed up my things and went back to my parents' house. By that time, I was about to enter the second half of my pregnancy. And when I told my husband that I wanted to go home early, "Isn't that sweet?" I ignored it. Even while I was on my way home, my mother-in-law and husband frequently contacted me. When I realized I wasn't answering the phone very often, he started sending me messages. "I let you go home early, so please come back here as soon as the baby is born. That child is our precious heir." My Kago told me that. "My room is not tidy. I'm too busy to clean it. So when you come back, please start by cleaning it. Your body will feel better after giving birth, right?" he said jokingly on the phone. I thought it was bad for my stomach when I got irritated, so I ignored everything. From my grandmother, "Seriously, Lily, even after the baby is born, I won't help you with anything." From my appearance, my grandmother was very displeased, probably because she realized that I was not getting along with my in-laws. "Lily, come here for a second. If there's one good thing, it would be that I had more opportunities to talk to my mother." I talked about what my mother-in-law and husband told me and what I had been told. Actually, things haven't been going well with Kago and his mother-in-law for a long time. Even though I am pregnant, Kago still will not do the housework. The real reason why I came back here early is because Kago has been in a hurry lately. I've become more and more irritated. I'm scared. A little while ago, Kago became more and more irritated. In his worst moments, he would yell at me for being pregnant and shove me on the shoulder. When I consulted my mother-in-law, she only told me to be patient. At that time, I had a bruise, and I have a medical certificate. Now that I am struck, I am thinking of getting a divorce after the baby is born." After my mother was silent for a while with a stern face, "Yes, I understand," I replied with just one word. After some time, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. When labor pains began, I contacted my husband, but maybe he didn't like my attitude of ignoring his earlier contact. "I can't go because I'm busy with work. Just tell me when you're discharged from the hospital." Even though my child was about to be born, I felt dizzy given my crazy husband's attitude. I became angry given his attitude, so when I told him the day I was discharged from the hospital, I didn't contact him after that, and my husband didn't contact me either. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, my mobile phone rang when I was slowly returning to my parents' house. The other party was Kago. When I hesitated to answer the phone because I didn't want to talk, my mother, who was next to me, silently reached out to my mobile phone and put my husband on speakerphone. "Hey, you're discharged from the hospital today, aren't you? Why haven't you come home? Mom and I have been waiting for you since this morning. Come home early and show your grandchild to my mom." My husband's scream echoed through my room. I was silent. "My daughter and grandson are dead. Forget it, and I will never forgive you." What my mother said was outrageous. Huh? That voice? Is that your... She died? Huh? My husband seemed terribly upset. Then I heard someone nearby to Kago. "Lily's mother, this is Kago's mother. Could it be that you're lying? This is where you get in trouble, right?" My body trembled just by hearing that nasal voice. My body was filled with disgust for my mother-in-law and husband. My mother stopped me when I tried to retort. "Good. Shall we get out? I think you're the one who's really in trouble, though. Let's go to the police to raise your hand with enough force to get a bruise." Saying so, my mother hung up the phone. The mother? When I was confused, my mother hugged me tightly as I held my son, saying that I was fine. It was my first time being hugged by my mother, and I was happy that she was on my side. When I was watching my son sleeping peacefully with my mother for a while, my grandmother, who was out, came back with noisy footsteps. "What the hell? You're still alive? I just got a call from Kago's mother. You guys hurt me in doing this too. I'm going to apologize now." My grandmother, who didn't even care about her grandchild, half forced us to take her to the in-laws' house. When I arrived at my mother-in-law's house, my mother-in-law and husband glared at me and my mother. "Oh, that child is our cute heir. Come on." As my mother-in-law approached me, "Don't touch me." My voice came out involuntary. Did those words touch the scales? "Hey, you should apologize. I only touched your shoulder, and the police are exaggerating." My husband yelled at me. I glared at my husband. "I can't divorce you anymore. You won't come to see my newborn child. Even though you're going to be a father, nothing will change for you. I can't imagine a happy future with you anymore." Raising his voice, my husband got scared because he was surprised by the word divorce from me. Yes, if you don't mind, but leave your grandchild behind and go out alone. Lily, aren't you suffering from postpartum depression? Besides, there's a crazy mother nearby who would even joke that she died. If so, my grandchild would not grow up properly." My mother-in-law told me that with a snort. "Your grandmother should take my side and apologize to me and my mother as soon as possible," Kago kept saying. Then my mother, who was silent, "Which one is crazy? My precious daughter and grandchild are not your toys." Saying that, my mother glared at my grandmother. It was at that time. "What happened earlier? There's a lot of noise. I can hear people yelling all the way from the building. Oh, did Lily and the others come?" The grandmother-in-law smiled at her son. "So, what is the situation here? Can you explain?" Keigo's grandmother glared at her daughter with cold eyes. No, mother-in-law's wrong. Our words seemed to resonate. Keigo's grandmother, my grandmother-in-law, seemed to have heard the general story. Are you doing such a shameful thing as picking on your wife in this era of Rawa? At the words of my grandmother-in-law, the faces of my husband and mother-in-law turned pale at once. To think you are completely obsessed with the management of the company, and you are not able to grasp the actions of your wife. And Keigo, your son still has a long way to go. My grandmother-in-law smiled at that. Lily, I'll make sure you take responsibility. I'm sorry I didn't notice you. You're going to break up with Keigo, but I'd be happy if you could come see me again. Of course, thank you for your help. Thank you. Then the grandmother-in-law looked at the awkward grandmother. You insisted, so I arranged a matchmaking between our grandchildren. Lily and her mother were very nice people, but what about you? As if to see something unpleasant, my grandmother was red to her ears. Looking at my husband and mother-in-law, who were in a dazed state, I bowed deeply to my grandmother-in-law and left the mother-in-law's house. Looking at me and my mother when we got home and packed our things. Hey, where are you going? I won't let you do what you want, in the words of my grandmother. Yes? Your mother-in-law said that she won't allow you to divorce her son until you, Lily, have had a child. I've already put up with it. I later heard from my mother that my father had another woman somewhere else, and my grandmother told my mother that she was to blame. When he asked for a divorce, he told her that he would not allow my mother to take me while I was still young. I also found out that my grandmother did not take care of my grandfather at all, which was so sad. Mom, you were an idiot. I should have run away with Lily. If I had done that, Lily wouldn't have to suffer and would have been happy. My mother's words made me burst into tears. After that, my mother and I both got divorced. My father didn't want to pay alimony and asked for a divorce, but there was multiple pieces of evidence that indicated a long-standing affair, and when my mother said she would consult a lawyer, he reluctantly accepted the divorce. I was shocked to learn that my father was such a piece of crap. I have no intention of seeing him again. My mother also requested compensation for mental distress from my grandmother. When I asked for a lawyer, I heard that Keigo was scared and simply paid. It seems that rumors have already spread about this matter, and it seems that my grandmother has quit the tea ceremony class and is now mostly staying at home. In addition, my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law were kicked out of the former family. It seems that I had misunderstood, and it was only after my divorce that I learned that the former president of the company that Keigo's father works for was actually Keigo's grandmother. She's the chairman now. It seems that Keigo and the others were embezzling the company's money, and that the report came to the chairman, Keigo's grandmother. Choose here and now. Choose a company, this stupid wife, or stupid grandson. Hearing his mother's words, Lily's ex-husband chose the company without hesitation. The two cried and clung to each other, but of course there was no way they would be forgiven. The two are accused of a crime, but I heard that they are missing because they seem to have run away quickly. After the divorce was finalized, things were really good. Since then, my mom and I have rented a room and started living together with my son. I named my son Ayumyu. My mother began doing much better on her own. She was happier. Colleagues told me that my smile increased even at my part-time job. Ayumyu, it's a hat that grandmother knitted. When I started living with my mother, I learned a lot about her. That she's good at crafts, what she likes, what she doesn't like, what colors she likes. I didn't even know about my mother. Mom, thank you for everything. At my words, my mother suddenly smiled, a little embarrassed. From now on, I strongly vowed to walk the future with my precious family.